Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
From makeshift studios deep in the heart of stately Maine Manor, this is the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, and I am your host, Joey Harris. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod, email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. And folks, I feel like I am getting a lot accomplished every day, but my to-do list is not getting any shorter. So someone must be coming in at the end of every day and just adding to it in handwriting that looks like mine. I go to the doctor last Friday for my 9-month post-gastric bypass surgery visit. I had to follow up with the psychologist, and then I had my metabolism tested. And the good thing is that I have the normal metabolism of someone my age, weight, and height. So I have to work a little bit harder to continue on my weight loss journey, but that's okay. That's what I'm here to do, and that's what I will do. And speaking of doing things, let's get right down to it, because there ain't nothing to it but to do it. Today we look at Clash of the Champions 17 from WCW. Clash of the Champions 17 took place on November the 19th, 1991 from the Savannah Civic Center in Savannah, Georgia. There were 6,922 in attendance, and the show got a 4.3 rating on TBS. Intro with an announcer running down the championships on the line tonight. Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone are the announcers for the evening, and they welcome us to the Clash. They run down some of what we're going to see before throwing it to Eric Bischoff and Missy Hyatt. Missy says she's going to be interviewing Marcus Alexander Bagwell later. They then throw it to Gary Michael Capetta. We start off with a lumberjack match. Thomas Rich with Alexander York versus Big Josh. Rich jumps Josh as soon as he starts to enter the ring. He pulls his flannel up over Josh's head and hits him with some forearms. He then kicks and punches Josh. Josh is starting to come back. He shrugs off some shots from Rich. He throws off the flannel and hits a shoulder block. Rich tries to find the side of the ring he can go out, but before he does, Josh grabs his ponytail. He then chops Rich down to the mat. He atomic drops Rich into the corner turnbuckle. He tells Rich to get up, and once again you see Rich try to go outside, only to be met by lumberjacks. Josh hits a belly-to-belly suplex on Rich. Josh then does log rolling on Rich. A chop knocks Rich down. He then punches Rich on the mat. Rich rolls out, and the Freebirds and Todd Champion come over to put him back in, and the lumberjacks start to fight. They push Rich back into the ring. Josh with an Irish whip and a backdrop. He then drops an elbow on Rich. Back and forth in the ring. Josh tossed to the outside. Other members of the York Foundation pound on him on the outside. He finally gets back in the ring. Josh then tossed back outside, where he gets hit again before being thrown back into the ring. Rich with an Irish whip and a clothesline. Rich uses some of his wrist tape to choke Josh. Rich with another Irish whip and a back elbow. Rich drops an elbow on Josh. Gets a 2 count. Josh with a series of left hands to Rich. He then chops Rich in the corner. Rich wraps his wrist tape around his throat again. Referee Randy Anderson gets on Rich and pulls him away, allowing Steve Armstrong of the Young Pistols an opportunity to climb up on the apron to choke Josh. Rich with a suplex. Josh coming back with shots and chops. Josh with a corner whip, but Rich gets his boot up on the charge. Rich climbs up top, but gets caught and tossed off. Josh with a kick and a chop to Rich. Josh with a snap suplex. He gets a 2 count. Side headlock by Josh into a push-off, and they do a crisscross. Terrence Taylor trips Rich, and Josh hits the Northern Exposure sit-down splash to win. Firebreaker Chip versus Bobby Eaton. Eaton gets a great reaction when he is announced. The bell rings and they lock up. Back to the corner. Break clean. They locked up again. Again back to the corner. Eaton hip locks Chip out of the corner. They locked up again, and Chip gets a side headlock. He then takes Eaton over. Eaton turns and gets a quick 2 count before Chip shifts back to a headlock. Eaton with another quick 2 count. Eaton gets back to his feet and pushes off. He misses a back elbow. Chip goes up top, but Eaton moves out of the way when Chip jumps. Chip shifts tactics and hits Eaton with a crossbody from the opposite ring post. He gets a 2 count. They lock up again. Chip back to the side headlock. Eaton counters with an overhand wrist lock. Chip goes back to the side headlock into a takeover. Eaton again shifts and gets a 2 count. Chip shifts back to the headlock. Eaton again going for a 2 count when he shifts. Eaton up and drives Chip back to a corner. He then drives him into a second corner. Chip reverses a corner whip, but Eaton moves and Chip hits the turnbuckle chest first as he was attempting a crossbody. He adjusts and goes up top and hits Eaton with a top rope clothesline. He goes for the cover, but Eaton is up under the ropes. Back up, and they lock up again. Chain wrestling moves by Eaton into a single leg pickup. He has Chip down with a hammerlock. Chip reverses it. Gets a 2 count, but Eaton is fighting it. Chip with another 2 count. Chip picks Eaton up and goes back to the side headlock. Back to a corner. Chip with a corner whip, but Eaton comes out with a clothesline. Eaton with an Irish whip and a backbreaker. He gets a 2 count. Chip reverses an Irish whip. Eaton comes back with a crossbody. Chip rolls through and gets a 2 count. Eaton with an Irish whip. Chip blocks a hip lock attempt and turns it into a backslide. He gets a 2 count. Eaton reverses a corner whip. Chip slides out of a backdrop attempt. He rolls Eaton up for a 2 count. Eaton kicks out and that drives Chip into the turnbuckle. Eaton with the belly-to-back suplex to get the pin. A Starrcade 91 Battle Bowl ad. Tony Schiavone is on the ramp to interview Sting. He is to receive his final mystery box tonight. Sting comes out to a great ovation. He said this is just like a party. A bunch of oiled up men bring out the final box. Medusa comes out of the box. She gets on her knees and touches Sting's legs, then up to his chest. It's very reminiscent of sensational Sherry in The Ultimate Warrior at the Royal Rumble. She turns him around and continues to rub his chest. He says, are we going and where do you want me to go? His back is to the box, and Lex Luger comes out of the box and clips Sting to knock him down. Luger attacks the knee, and Jim Ross says on commentary that it has been Luger all along sending the boxes to Sting. Luger is supposed to attack the leg that Sting had surgery on, but grabs the wrong one at first, and Sting has to tell him that he grabbed the wrong one. That made me laugh. Luger makes up for it, though, repeatedly hitting the other leg. Other wrestlers finally come out to drive Luger off. The Diamond Stud versus the Z-Man Tom Zink. Both men are already in the ring as they come back from the commercial break. Zink with a corner whip, but Stud gets his boot up on the charge. Stud with a bulldog from the second rope. He gets a 2 count. Stud is beating Zink in the corner as they show Sting being looked over in the back. He is on a stretcher. Bobby Eaton telling Sting, you've got plenty of time, you should get that knee examined. Back in the ring, Zink posts Stud in the corner. Zink with a sunset flip for a 2 count. Sting is being loaded into an ambulance as Stud hits Zink with a clothesline. Stud with an Irish whip, and Zink ducks a clothesline attempt as Sting is shown being carried away by the ambulance. Zink with a super kick. Zink gets the pin with a crucifix. Stud chokeslams Zink after the match. He then hits the Diamond Death Drop. He yells out that he's the bad guy already, ready to be Razor Ramon, I guess. WCW Television Championship match. Steve Austin with Lady Blossom versus PN News. Austin attacks News before the bell rings. He hits News with his right hands. News reverses an Irish whip and chokeslams Austin down. Austin gets to the corner and begs off. News hitting Austin with some right hands. News with the corner whip. He then splashes Austin in the corner. He then clotheslines Austin from behind. Austin begging off. Austin goes to go outside, but News grabs him as he is going through the ropes and drags him back to the center of the ring. News with a scoop slam. News drops an elbow on Austin. Austin rolls to the outside. News follows him, and Austin attacks him on the outside. News Irish whips Austin into the barricade. News throws Austin back into the ring. Austin goes to pick News up, but can't do it. He gets him up finally, but falls back with News on top of him. News gets a 2.5 count. News with an Irish whip and a sloppy-looking drop kick. News with a suplex, but Austin is on the ropes when News goes to pin him. News with a snap mare. Gets a 2 count. Austin throws News to the outside. They then started fighting on the ramp. Austin rushes News, who backdrops Austin back into the ring. Austin gets to the corner and is begging off. News with an Irish whip and a splash to Austin. Another Irish whip and a bear hug by News into a belly-to-belly suplex. A 2 count, but Lady Blossom puts Austin's foot on the ropes. News goes out after Lady Blossom. While he is going after her, Austin launches himself over the top rope onto News. He then runs News into the barricade. Austin then throws News back inside the ring. He drives his shoulder into News in the corner. News reverses a corner whip. He misses the charge when Austin moves. Austin gets the pin with his feet on the ropes. The network skips over Missy Hyatt interviewing Marcus Bagwell. I'm sure we didn't miss much. Cactus Jack versus Van Hammer. Hammer comes to the ring with a guitar that shoots off sparks, but he still doesn't know how to play the thing. Cactus Jack jumps Hammer in the corner of the ring as he turns his back. He kicks Hammer several times in the stomach. He hits him with a short right. He then bites Hammer on the forehead. Hammer with the belly-to-back suplex. Hammer follows that up with a drop kick. Cactus Jack falls to the outside. Hammer over the top rope with a double axe handle to Cactus Jack on the outside. Hammer then runs Cactus Jack into the barricade head first. He then throws Cactus Jack back into the ring. Back in, Hammer with an Irish whip. He hits Cactus Jack with a big boot. He then stomps on Cactus Jack. Leg drop on Cactus Jack. He gets a 2 count. Cactus Jack reverses a corner whip. He then bulldogs Hammer. Cactus Jack then clotheslines Hammer, and they both go over the top rope. Cactus Jack climbs to the second rope on the apron and drops an elbow on Hammer. He beats Hammer down on the outside, but then throws him back in. Cactus Jack stomping Hammer down in the ring. Hammer back up, and Cactus Jack hitting him with some forearms. A Hammer chant goes out. Back and forth in the center of the ring. Hammer reverses a corner whip. Hammer then clotheslines Cactus Jack from behind. Hammer goes up and hits Cactus Jack with a knee to the back of the head. He gets a 2 count. Hammer with an Irish whip. They collide and Cactus Jack goes out of the ring. Hammer comes over and Cactus Jack drives Hammer's guitar into his throat as the referee is trying to get Hammer out of the ropes. He then pins Hammer. Cactus Jack then picks Hammer up, Irish whips him. Hammer ducks a clothesline attempt and clotheslines Cactus Jack. Hammer then throws Cactus Jack out of the ring. Hammer then slingshot suplexes Cactus Jack on the ramp. He then hits Cactus Jack with a shoulder block. They start fighting beside the ramp towards the back. Jim Ross is on the phone trying to establish a connection with Eric Bischoff, who had left in the ambulance with Sting. Bischoff says Sting is being examined and says an orderly has just given him the thumbs up sign, and he hopes that means good news. Eric says in the ambulance, Sting's knee swole up to 3 or 4 times its normal size, and Sting was in a tremendous amount of pain. Back from the commercial break, Jim and Tony talk about the situation with the tag team titles. They showed the video of the Enforcers attacking Barry Windham and Halloween Havoc, and then Windham re-injuring the wrist in another match. WCW World Tag Team Championship match. The Enforcers, Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko, versus Dustin Rhodes and a mystery partner with Barry Windham. The Enforcers are out first. Rhodes and Windham come down, and Windham is wearing street clothes. Windham gets on the mic and says he isn't going to be able to wrestle because this past week he had reconstructive surgery on his right hand. But he and Rhodes didn't come alone, and he wants to introduce Dustin Rhodes' new tag team partner. A man wearing a black robe with a dragon's head on it comes out. Tony says maybe it's someone from Japan who is here. He takes his time getting to the ring. Zbyszko and Anderson complaining about the situation to referee Nick Patrick. Anderson yelling at Jim and Tony about the situation. Rhodes takes off the robe and head to reveal Ricky Steamboat. Steamboat had just been in the WWF. The crowd goes crazy for Steamboat. The Enforcers are going crazy in their corner. They don't want to give the titles to Patrick. They finally do, and he lifts the titles up high for people to see. Anderson getting mad and signaling that he wants Steamboat. All 4 men in and Patrick trying to get 2 of them out. The bell rings and it is Anderson and Steamboat starting. Steamboat clapping to get the crowd into the match. They lock up. Anderson drives Steamboat to a corner, and Steamboat comes out with a flurry of chops to drive Anderson back. Anderson comes back with a rake to the eyes and runs Steamboat into the heels corner. Both Enforcers taking turns hitting Steamboat. Steamboat fighting out of the corner, hitting both enforcers. All 4 men in now. They all 4 battle to the outside. Steamboat chops Zbyszko hard, right by the announce desk. Rhodes runs Anderson into the corner post. Back in, Zbyszko goes to run Steamboat into a turnbuckle, but Steamboat pushes Zbyszko into it instead. Steamboat with a back elbow. Anderson comes in and gets hit by Rhodes and atomic dropped by Steamboat. Steamboat then drop kicks Anderson out of the ring. The enforcers go outside to regroup. Zbyszko back in. They lock up. Steamboat goes to a side headlock. Zbyszko tries to push off, but Steamboat won't let go of the headlock. Zbyszko finally pushes off. Steamboat comes back with a shoulder block. Steamboat with a side headlock takeover. Zbyszko gets a pinning predicament for a 2 count. Steamboat goes back to a side headlock. Rhodes tagged in. He drops a leg on Zbyszko's arm. Zbyszko reverses and scoop slams Rhodes, but Rhodes holds on to the armbar he had on and Zbyszko goes back down. Steamboat tagged in and hits Zbyszko with a hand thrust from the top rope. Steamboat then drags Zbyszko over to a corner and drives his arm into the ring post. He then does it again. He drags Zbyszko back to the face's corner and tags Rhodes. Rhodes drops a knee on Zbyszko's arm while Steamboat is holding it. Rhodes with an armbar. He gets back to his feet and drives back to tag Anderson in. Anderson with forearm to Rhodes' back. Anderson with his left hands to Rhodes and then shoving him into a corner to deliver some kicks. He then punches Rhodes several times right above his eye. Rhodes reverses a corner whip, but Anderson gets his knee up on the charge in. Anderson goes up top, but Rhodes catches him and goes to throw him off, but Anderson gouges Rhodes' eye. Anderson hits a double axe handle off of the ropes. He runs Rhodes' face into his bootlaces. Anderson with a corner whip, but Rhodes gets his boot up on the charge in by Anderson. Anderson tries it again, and Rhodes hits him with another boot to the face. Rhodes with a bionic elbow to Anderson. Anderson wanders over to the wrong corner, and Steamboat hits him at the same time as Zbyszko comes in, and Rhodes hits him and both enforcers roll to the outside to regroup. Zbyszko then tagged in. He says he wants Steamboat. Steamboat tagged in. They lock up. Steamboat with a wrist lock into a back thrust kick. They lock up and then go back and forth with blows. Zbyszko goads Steamboat to the outside where Steamboat chases Zbyszko around the ring. Back in the ring briefly, but Zbyszko goes out and Steamboat grabs him by the hair to bring him back in, allowing Anderson to hit Steamboat from behind with a knee. Rhodes comes in and gets cut off by Nick Patrick, allowing the enforcers to double team Steamboat. Zbyszko with a suplex. He gets a 2 count. He then runs Steamboat into Anderson's knee. Steamboat chopping Zbyszko. Zbyszko with a reverse thrust kick. Anderson tagged in. He hit Steamboat with the right hand. Anderson with the corner whip, driving Steamboat back first into a turnbuckle. Anderson with some left hands. Steamboat coming back with chops, karate kicks, and chops. Anderson runs his shoulder into Steamboat's chest. Anderson with an Irish whip. Steamboat coming back with a sunset flip. He finally gets Anderson over, but Anderson tags Zbyszko before he went over, and Zbyszko hits Steamboat from behind. Zbyszko with a scoop slam. Zbyszko with a boot clap to Steamboat. Zbyszko with an abdominal stretch. A Steamboat chant goes out. Patrick distracted, so Anderson grabs Zbyszko's hand for added leverage. They do it again as soon as Patrick isn't looking. Rhodes tries to come in, but gets cut off by Patrick. Anderson tagged in. Steamboat with an Irish whip, but drops his head, and Anderson hits him with an elbow. Belly to back suplex by Anderson. Gets a 2 count. They exchange shots in the corner. Anderson with an Irish whip, but he drops his head, and Steamboat sends it crashing down to the mat. Anderson grabs Steamboat's leg and tags Zbyszko in. Zbyszko with a boot to Steamboat. Gets a 2 count. Zbyszko gets a backbreaker. He then gets another 2 count. Steamboat counters with an eye gouge. Steamboat goes for a scoop slam, but Zbyszko falls on him. He gets a 2 count. Zbyszko gets a front face lock on Steamboat. Zbyszko with a drop toe hold. Anderson tagged in. He stomps Steamboat and then goes and punches Rhodes on the apron. Rhodes comes in and again gets cut off by Patrick as Anderson gets a bear hug. Steamboat goes to chop Anderson to get out of the move, and Anderson cranks the hold on to stop it. He then does it again. Steamboat falls to his knees and then to his back while still in the hold. He gets a 2 count. Then another 2 count as Steamboat is having trouble keeping his shoulder up not to get pinned. Anderson goes to drive his knees into Steamboat, but Steamboat wraps his leg around Anderson's waist. Anderson turns that over into a Boston Crab. Zbyszko gives added leverage again, bringing Rhodes back in to be cut off by Patrick yet again. The Enforcers are double teaming to perfection. Zbyszko tagged in and picks the Boston Crab up. The Enforcers are keeping Steamboat in their corner. Steamboat crawling to get back to his corner to make the tag. Steamboat makes the tag, but Anderson had distracted Patrick, so he doesn't allow the tag. Anderson tagged in and corner whips Steamboat. Steamboat ducks an Anderson punch and hits an atomic drop. Anderson goes forward and hits the ring post, and then his and Steamboat's heads crack together. Both men down. A double count going. Anderson crawls out to the apron. Anderson goes up top, but Steamboat gets his legs up to hit Anderson as he was coming off. Another double count going. Anderson calls for Zbyszko to get in and cut off the tag, but Steamboat gets it just before Zbyszko gets there. Rhodes in and cleaning house on both Enforcers. He hits a lariat on Zbyszko. He then scoop slams Anderson. Anderson reverses an Irish whip. Rhodes tags Steamboat as he gets close and bulldogs Anderson on his way back. Zbyszko comes in and goes to throw Steamboat out, but he holds on to the top rope, climbs back in, and goes up top and hits the crossbody to win. New WCW World Tag Team Champions. Jim and Tony talk about the last match and the fact that the Enforcers are protesting the outcome in the back. Feature on Jushin Liger. Jim Ross talks to Paulie dangerously. He says he's sorry about what happened to Sting, but business is business, and the contract for the U.S. title says that if Sting doesn't appear in the ring by bell time, Rick Rude automatically becomes the U.S. champion. Tony recaps what just happened while Jim tries to get Eric Bischoff on the phone again. Bischoff says they are done and Sting is making his way out. Bischoff tells him about the loophole that Paulie had put in the contract. Sting says he doesn't care about his leg. He's going back to the arena right now. Bischoff says Sting has commandeered an ambulance to drive back to the building. No word on how Bischoff got back to the building. WCW World Light Heavyweight Championship match. Brian Pillman versus Johnny B. Bad with Teddy Long. The bell rings and they circle each other. Bad with some jabs that Pillman stays away from. They lock up and drive to a corner. Bad breaks and hits some jabs to Pillman's midsection. Pillman chops back and he Irish whips Bad and backdrops him. Pillman with a drop kick. Bad up and over to the ramp. Pillman hops to the top rope and hits Bad with a clothesline. Bad reverses a piledriver attempt into a backdrop, and Pillman holds on to try to get Bad down. Bad punches Pillman to get him to let go. Bad grabs Pillman by the hair and jumps off the ramp to drive him throat first into the barricade. Bad gets back in the ring, and Pillman is struggling to get back there as well. Bad goes to double axe handle Pillman as he gets in, and Pillman buries his shoulder into Bad's midsection. Pillman launches himself over the top rope to crossbody Bad. He gets a 2 count. Pillman reverses an Irish whip and power slams Bad. Pillman goes up top and goes to splash Bad, who gets his knees up. Bad with an Irish whip and a back elbow. Bad gets a 2 count. Bad with a scoop slam. Bad goes off the top rope, and Pillman hits him with a drop kick as he is coming off. Pillman slaps Bad's chest, Irish whips him, and hits a clothesline. Bad reverses an Irish whip. Pillman ducks a clothesline attempt and hits a spinning heel kick on Bad. He gets a 2 count. Pillman with an Irish whip. Bad ducks a clothesline attempt, and Bad comes back with a clothesline of his own. Bad goes up top and hits a sunset flip. Long has the referee distracted, so he can't count the pin attempt. Bad comes over to tell Long to get off the apron. He turns around and takes a punch at Pillman, who ducks it and goes to roll Bad up, knocking Long off of the apron. He rolls Bad up and gets the pin. Long and Bad start arguing in the ring. Bad punches Long and leaves the ring. WCW United States Championship match. Sting versus Rick Rude with Paulie dangerously. Rude and dangerously out first. They get in the ring and Paulie grabs the mic. He says a horrible tragedy has happened here tonight, and that is that Sting has let each and every one of his fans down. He says the little stingers mean nothing to that bottled blonde U.S. champion. He doesn't care about the little children who look up to him as you see the ambulance coming back to the arena. He says if Sting does not appear in the ring by the time the bell rings, there will be a new United States champion. They see Sting coming into the building, and Paulie screams for them to ring the bell. Sting is trying to get in the building, and the bell rings, and Paulie wants Sting counted out. A "We Want Sting" chant goes out. Patrick is starting to count, but gets interrupted by Paulie and has to start over again. Sting makes his way into the ring. Rude comes out on the ramp to meet Sting, and they start brawling. Sting picks Rude up and slams him down. Sting is hurting. They brawl back towards the ring. Rude is knocked down again. Sting kicks Rude off of the ramp and then follows him down. Sting throws Rude into the ring. Rude hits Sting and goes up top. Sting catches Rude with a shot to the stomach as he jumps off. Sting hits Rude with some right hands. He kicks him and then Irish whips Rude. He backdrops Rude. Sting then limps over to Rude. He then drives Rude several times into the corner turnbuckle. Another right hand knocks Rude down. Sting Irish whips Rude, but Rude holds on to the ropes. Sting then clotheslines Rude over the top rope. Rude grabs Sting by the legs and pulls him down and drives the injured knee into the ring post. He then does it again. Rude climbs up top and clotheslines Sting from behind off of the top rope. He then does his hip gyration taunt. Rude goes for the Rude Awakening, but Sting is fighting it. Sting goes for a clothesline, but Rude ducks and pokes Sting in the eye. Rude with some right hands. Sting tries to hit a right hand of his own, but Rude easily ducks it. He does it again, but Sting waits the third time and hits Rude after he ducks. Sting fired up and making a comeback. He knocks Rude up against the ropes, and Rude seems out of it. Rude bounces off the ropes, and as he falls down, he clips Sting's injured leg because Sting had turned around. Nick Patrick goes to check on Rude, allowing Paulie to climb up on the apron and hit Sting with his cell phone. Rude rolls Sting over and gets a 2.5 count. The crowd is going crazy, really getting into the match. Sting kicks Rude and hits a DDT. Paulie gets on the apron. Sting comes over to him and grabs him, allowing Rude to clip the knee again. Rude rolls Sting up and pins him with a handful of tights. New United States champion. Paulie grabs the belt and gives it to Rude. Rude raises the belt up high as Paulie hugs him. Nick Patrick checks on Sting, who is still on the mat and holding his knee in pain. Rude and Paulie leave with the belt. The crowd is booing them. Another Starrcade ad. Tony Schiavone interviews Paulie, Medusa, and Rick Rude. They are celebrating. Paulie admits that it was a setup and a conspiracy. He says now WCW answers to them. Now the Dangerous Alliance calls the shots because there's a new United States champion without even breaking a sweat, and his name is Ravishing Rick Rude. Rude says, and the walls come tumbling down. A gallant effort for a very noble cause, Sting, fighting to keep the hopes and prayers of all the little Stingers alive. Well, the hopes and the prayers, Sting, they died, and what Ravishing Rick Rude has to say to you, what Rick Rude, the U.S. champion, has to say to you, Sting, is nice guys finish last. Another Starrcade ad. Jim Ross talks to Ron Simmons, who is out with a broken wrist. Simmons says it's always a pleasure to be back in his home state and to put on one of the best shows right there in Savannah, and he is sure everyone is enjoying it as much as he is. He also wants to thank everyone who has sent in get well cards and best wishes to him. His broken wrist occurred at Halloween Havoc sometime during the match. He doesn't know when because his mind was on one thing, winning the World Heavyweight title. This is going to be a great match here tonight, and he is here for one thing like any good coach or boxer would do, and that is to scout this match, and whoever comes out the victor, Ron Simmons is still going to give out that promise and uphold his word. He's going to be the first black man to wear that belt one day. Flashback to the altercations that have taken place recently between Rick Steiner and Lex Luger. WCW World Heavyweight Championship match. Lex Luger with Harley Race and Mr. Hughes versus Rick Steiner with Scott Steiner. Referee Randy Anderson sends Mr. Hughes from the ringside area. The bell rings and they lock up and go to a corner. They break on a 4 count. They circle each other, lock up again. Back to another corner. JR works in the college athletic credentials. If you're drinking at home, you can take a shot. They break and circle each other again. They lock up again, and Rick with a single leg takedown. Luger gets to the ropes. They circle each other again as the crowd is starting to get behind Rick. Rick with a double leg takedown. Rick goes for the pin, but Luger grabs the ropes. They circle each other again. Luger with a waist lock. Rick with a reversal. They go to the mat, and Luger grabs the ropes again. Rick breaks on the 4 count. They lock up again. Rick with a side headlock. Luger pushes off. Rick comes back with a shoulder block. They circle each other again. Luger stalling and not wanting to lock up with Rick. They finally lock up, and Luger with a knee to the stomach. Rick with a side headlock. Luger pushes off. Luger drops down. He attempts to leapfrog, but Rick catches him and power slams him. He gets a 2 count. Rick with a Steiner line that knocks Luger out of the ring to the floor. Rick gets down in the referee's position ready for Luger to come back in. Luger pacing around the ring. He finally gets up on the apron and tells Randy Anderson to get Rick back. Luger gets in the ring as the crowd starts to clap, getting behind Rick. They circle each other again, and Luger keeps near the ropes. Luger with a kick to the stomach of Rick. Luger with an elbow to the back of Rick. Luger runs Rick into a corner turnbuckle. Rick fired up and starts towards Luger, who is backing away and begging off. Rick with a corner whip and a backdrop. He hits Luger with his right hands. Luger comes back with a thumb to the eye. Luger with an Irish whip. Rick ducks a clothesline attempt and hits a belly-to-back suplex. He gets a 2 count. Luger near the ropes and begging off. Luger buries his shoulder into Rick's midsection when he gets closer. Luger with a forearm to Rick's back and forth near the corner. Rick hits Luger a couple of times to drive him to the opposite corner. Luger reverses a corner whip. Rick hits the corner chest first, and as he comes back, he hits Randy Anderson, who goes down momentarily, allowing Luger to pick Rick up and crotch him on the top rope. Luger knocks Rick down with a clothesline. The crowd is booing Luger. He kicks Rick. Luger runs Rick's head along the top rope. He then runs his knee pad into Rick's eyes. Luger goes for a suplex, but Rick blocks it and hits a suplex of his own. Luger with an eye poke and a scoop slam to Rick. He then drives an elbow into Rick's throat. He gets a 2 count. Luger with a headlock and a shot to Rick's face. Luger throws Rick to the outside. Race runs his knee into Rick's face. Scott starts to come over. Anderson gets on him to go back to his corner. Luger runs Rick into the barricade. He then throws Rick back into the ring. He gets a 2 count. Luger with a forearm shot to Rick. Then a double axe handle. Then another one and Rick is groggy. Another one and Rick comes back with a right hand of his own. Then several more and Rick with an Irish whip and hits a belly-to-belly suplex. He gets a 2 count. Rick goes up top for the bulldog. He hits it and the crowd goes crazy. He gets a 2 count, but Luger gets his foot on the ropes. Rick puts Luger on the top rope. He then hits an overhead belly-to-belly suplex on Luger. Mr. Hughes comes out and he and Scott are fighting on the ramp, and Scott backdrops Hughes into the ring. He Irish whips Hughes and hits the Frankensteiner. They get out of the ring as Rick hits another belly-to-belly suplex on Luger, and Race gets up on the apron. Rick gets up and hits Race with the right hand and suplexes him into the ring. Anderson gets Race out of the ring, allowing Luger to grab the title and hit Rick with it. Luger then pins Rick. Luger raises the championship as he and Race and Hughes leave. Jim and Tony say they will have on the wrestling hotline whether Ricky Steamboat and Dustin Rhodes can keep the tag team titles. They then sign off from Savannah. The end credits play. Final thoughts. The Sting Rude stuff is interesting and a unique way to get the U.S. Championship off of Sting so that he can pivot to Luger. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Joey Harris. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from stately Maine Manor.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.